forgot what it's like to shoot a YouTube video on a Canon 5D Mark II. I don't even know if this is recording. Okay, it's recording. There's a lot to discuss. So bottom line up front, I spent the last 2 weeks in Morocco, and photographing Morocco taught me 3 important lessons about photography. It doesn't matter what camera you use. You know, I'm shooting this on a 5D Mark II, and all of the images that you'll see throughout this video were taken on that camera. The first thing I learned in creating beautiful images despite trying lighting conditions is to photograph with intention. Now, what I mean by that is, on the first few days that I arrived in country, I decided to go out and photograph, but to take it from a different perspective, because I'm not used to shooting in harsh light like you see here. I'm not used to, I'm not accustomed to working in these conditions, and so I noticed that as I was going through my images and color grading them, that the presets that I typically used in the past, the ones that I've made for myself, just did not feel right. And so I had to really step back and look at the scene, and I had to look at the colors, I had to look at the white balance carefully, I had to look at the histogram, and just see like how the effects of me photographing in field translated to the final image in the color grade. When you are traveling somewhere for the first time, or you're working in conditions that you're not accustomed to, I would recommend going out, taking some sample shots, and getting used to color grading those images in harsh light, and getting used to color grading those images in different conditions, because all of us love golden light hour. I love it. You probably love it. I love the blue hour. I love seeing the sunset. You know, it's just like that beautiful, nice, warm, saturated color. But chances are, if you're in the commercial world and doing advertising, you're not going to have the luxury always to photograph at those moments and those hours where the light's nice. And so you need to learn how to photograph in whatever condition, especially at high noon. Like, it's just, for whatever reason, that's when a lot of clients can photograph, or a lot of clients can make something. And so it's your job to tell a story, photograph, make images at high noon, at 2 in the afternoon, whatever the case may be. The second thing I learned is the importance of dialing in your settings. Now, by that I mean intentionally underexposing or overexposing the image. It's a constant battle that we face as photographers. Now, I typically tend to underexpose because I know I can save the shadows. With the Canon, especially the 5D Mark II, if you overexpose the highlights, you're not getting them back. You know, I've color graded and shot with Sony where you can bring back those highlights, but with Canon, forget about it. I love you, Canon, but it's just, yeah, everyone knows it. And so that's just one thing you have to keep in mind. So I underexpose and then boost the shadows in post-production. But having that in mind, you need to go out and test and see if that's going to work for your color grade, because I realized that how I was color grading determined how I photographed in the field. And another tip to creating beautiful images in harsh light is to use filters. Now, I have, hold on. All right, so I have with me a few different filters. I brought an ND, which you can see that knocks out, you know, if I were to throw that on, makes it extremely dark, right? Cuts down on the light. Another filter that I love that really don't hear much about or talk about much is the Pro Mist. I love the Pro Mist filter because it softens the highlights. Now, a lot of the shots that I took here in Morocco were at high noon, and there just was not a lot of color. And yeah, you could use a polarizer, but I don't have one, so I resorted to my Pro Mist, and I actually really like it. It softened the image. More than anything, it forced me to look at things differently, especially in post-production. And I found that, you know, grading for the Pro Mist, grading for how I was shooting in the field, kind of changed my style, and I actually fell in love with it. I really enjoyed it. And it was just really satisfying to see that, it's okay to step outside of your comfort zone and do something that's a little bit different. For me, it's satisfying to do something that's different and to push yourself creatively to create a different body of work that's not like everything else that you've done. So that's number 2. The third thing I learned while being here in Morocco is to understand the culture and understand your audience. There was a time when my buddy and I were on the beach and we were watching this group of teenagers creating and playing music, and it was a joyful sight. People were dancing, people were gathered around, people had their phones out. And one thing that I was told before I came here is that people really don't like to be photographed. And so I was very cautious of that. And so as we were watching, people had their phones out and they were getting into it, and so I felt like it was acceptable to take a few images of these guys having a good time. And so I did, and it was okay. I took like 5 or 6. I captured the moment, and then I moved on. And I think that's something that you have to be aware of when you're in someone else's home, is to be respectful, understand your left and right limits, take the images, and move on. And if you can do that, you're not only going to be respectable, but you're also going to be more intentional with how you photograph. This isn't necessarily a recipe for success, but hopefully it's a guidepost as to how you can create beautiful images even in harsh conditions. Now, I actually enjoy now shooting at high noon because you really can create images that are nice and that tell a story in the middle of the day, and it's okay. We're not always going to get beautiful light, but the more times you go out and you put yourself in those situations, the better you're going to be. How I carry my gear and the gear that I use is important to me. And recently, Think Tank Photo sent me one of their brand new Speed Top 30 bags, and I was honestly hesitant at first to use it because it's magnetic, which I think is a great feature, but I didn't realize until I was on the plane and we were, I was about halfway through my trip that I realized that there was little buckles on the back that you could fasten it so that if someone were trying to open the bag that they couldn't because it's latched down. And so after I realized that, I was sold on it. At the end of the day, camera bags allow you to carry your gear, and they should not interfere with your storytelling. They should not interfere with creating beautiful images. So I appreciate you showing up today, and thanks for being a part of this great community. Until next time, Roger out.